Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jamestown Public School Board to order. It is Monday, May 4th, 2026, and we're in the Thompson Community Room at 5:30 p.m. We'd like to welcome all those in our audience this evening. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Owen, would you be willing to read the school board norms tonight?
The board-developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached. Execute all duties of the school board in compliance with the North Dakota Century Code. Properly prepare for meetings and commit to assessing board effectiveness and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Owen. Moving on our agenda, we have no public communication. Does the board wish to acknowledge any new conflicts of interest? If not, moving on to our consent agenda. Would anyone like anything removed from the consent agenda or clarified? Jason.
Yeah, I would like to call out item E, Health and Human Services Rural Health Transformation Program grant. And I guess my only question would be, or as a district, have we, grants are very good. As we're going through some of our efficiencies and our staffing and whatnot, and also future funding, have we established a practice as far as analyzing some of those things as part of our grant process, application process?
Sustainability, you mean?
Sustainability, and also from a staff standpoint, is more taxing to current staff members. Is that thought through?
Yeah, generally speaking, so sustainability, that's always a question that we ask. Like you said, grants are fantastic, but what are the long-term implications of the grant? And so we look at sustainability every time we seek out a grant. And either that means there's a short-term window in which a grant is available that we do certain projects, or there is an understanding that there may be larger district contributions with the grant that are necessary in the future. So we do consider those things. As it relates to staff impact, that's something that we look to as well. Our focus isn't to add additional burden to people. It is to positively impact the student experience and the workplace experience. And so normally when we bring forward a grant like this, we feel like it is something that's either sustainable, or we've had a greater conversation around how we're going to sustain, and that it presents a positive impact to staff and students.
Does the board, or Jason, do you wish to have that removed for further discussion, or are we ready to move forward? Okay. Any other items on the consent agenda you'd like have a question about or clarification? Okay, any other? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Jason. Is there a second? Second by Jacob. We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving into our regular meeting, we're going to get to our recognition. And Jacob, if you could read the winter sports and read them slowly so I can have time to hand out the gifts. And then we'll move on to drama and music. Jamie, would you be willing to read the drama and music? And we can just do one after another, and then we'll have everyone line up here for a photo. I do want to note that there is a choir concert tonight, so some of the music students will be coming next meeting also. So we may have some here and some not, but we'll read all the names both meetings to make sure we don't miss anyone. All right? And students, when your name is called, just meet me right over here, and then we'll have you proceed to the stage. And parents, feel free to come right up in front and take photos.
For boys basketball, we have Edison Walters, all conference. For girls basketball, Macy Newmiller, all conference. Hannah Adelson, all conference. For gymnastics, Sutton Van Gilder, all conference, all state, fourth place in all state, all around. Brooklyn Waldy, all conference, all state. And Bree Carlson, WDA and state coach of the year. For boys hockey, Braxton Burkett, all conference, all state defenseman. And Parker Rolfsma, all conference forward. For boys swim and dive, Finn Mosier, 200 free, WDA champ and state second place. 500 free, WDA champ and state second place, and all conference, all state. And Ben Smith, WDA and state coach of the year.
Moving on to fine arts and drama, we have Sophie Hassenbargen, Outstanding Actor Award, State One Act. Aiden Lorenz, Outstanding Actor Award, State One Act. Students selected for the NDMEA All-State Band Choir and Orchestra, Mia Tyson, Aaliyah Tyson, Finn Mosier, Jovi Taylor, Sierra Perlyberg, and Ella Lean. State Stars at Orchestra WDA Solo and Ensemble Contest, Senior Ensemble, Mia Tyson, Autumn Roberts, Bella Schustrom, Patience Broderick, Luke Lafier, Hayden Olson, Marissa Moltzen, Mackenzie Stoddard. Violin duet, Mia Tyson. And in cello bass duet, Jovi Taylor and Aaliyah Tyson.
Congratulations to all of our students that received awards. And again, we'll have music, some additional music awards next week as there was a concert tonight. Moving on to our agenda, we have no correspondence. Under reports, health insurance report. Dan, would you be willing to just give a general overview for health insurance?
Sure thing. So I'll start with kind of the current state. So right now we're at a balance of about $1.87 million, which is about 2.9 times what our defined minimum before we have to start cost sharing per the contract. So from that perspective, it's holding well. That we don't have any risk of going into that cost sharing clause of the contract here. Right now, the district is covering about 2.675 million as a baseline with the 100,000 that we added last year. So right now, the 2.775 million is about 78% of the total cost of the plan is covered by the district, and the rest covered by the employees and and other income by the fund itself. Right now, the fund is operating about 14% under budget, but looking ahead, we've got some expenses that are running a little hot right now, are probably going to run a little bit above projections, likely probably going to hit pretty much right on this year's budget as far as what we allocated for the spend. So our ending balance is going to be probably very likely the same as what we had last year. The claims this year are probably a more reflective of what a normal year would look like. The last couple of years, the first couple of years after we made the fund changes, the plan changes, the performance was really good because we had some unusually good years, had relatively few claims, and the claims that we had weren't as extensive. Right now, our claims are probably considered more along the lines of normal, but much more than what we've had in the past. Still under budget, but again, just setting expectations about relative to what we've done in the past. Looking ahead, we have started our renewal process and looking at what that would cost. So that's going to be done by June. You know, what kind of plan changes and decisions have to be made by then. Right now, the very rough estimates, and we're looking at second opinions about what can happen with those. We expect an increase to the total fund of about $406,000. So that's about 11.4% increase in the total fund cost. How that's divvied up between the employees and the school district is yet to be decided. That is actually a negotiating point within negotiations right now, but we're looking at a total pile of about $406,000 increase. With that fund balance of about $1.87 million, we can absorb it without doing anything different. We're obviously going to look at what tweaks we can make to the deductibles, things we can do to co-pays as part of that health insurance committee, which the board and the staff and the teachers all have a say within that committee. So working that out over the next month will be part of the process to determine what's going to be a fair plan design to keep people involved in the plan, but also to keep costs under control. So any questions or comments? Any further information?
Jason, go ahead.
My only question would be in terms of like usage around the district. When you're going through that, is increasing usage, or is usage viability discussed at all? Like, do our consultants feel that we're at a good level for our size of plan and all that?
Yeah, that is part of the conversation. So we do keep track of how many people are in there, who's relative to previous years. We're very cognizant of that as part of our discussions.
Aaron.
So what is the period for renewal? How often do we need to?
Oh, it's every year.
Okay.
Yep.
And then it's in June, it's coming up, you said?
Yeah, I think it's in June when we have to make some final decisions, and that'll roll out in by August.
Yeah, we usually get pretty close to what we're going to do with maybe a few tweaks and a few questions answered by the mid-May meeting.
Okay.
And then I think it's the 6th or 9th or something of June, we have to have it so that it can be put out into a plan, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? The committee works very hard to make sure we have a good product. Health insurance costs are rising everywhere. Fortunately, we've been able to keep the percentage of our plan under what the national average has, but there's a lot of moving pieces to it, a lot of levers, and there's a lot of pieces because we want to make sure it's affordable also for our staff and teachers. It's an important benefit, so it's something that the committee takes very seriously. So, and thank you, Dan, for serving on that. If not, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. We have board education, activities, updates, and review. Mr. Roldson, would you please come forward?
Good evening. Thanks for having me here tonight. I would like to share some things here, basically related to 4 main topics here that I have to present tonight for you. One is participation numbers and costs. We'd like to share some information and answer any questions that you might have based on that. Talk about our administrative supervision and the process for that and how much time goes into that. Also, an item that was asked about was our coaching salaries, and we were looking at answering, how they're determined and what is the process for payment of coaches and so on. And then last thing I'd like to touch base on tonight is just our future fundraising opportunities and other items or possibilities that we may have or in the future going forward or questions that you might have. I apologize, it's probably tough to read where you're at, but what I shared with you here is just our athletic participation numbers. I did neglect to give you our fine arts numbers and so on. Those are a few programs, and I can share those with you here tonight roughly or at a later date if you would like to as well. It's kind of a catch-22 with our fine arts. There is a difference between what's curricular and what is extracurricular that evolve around the activity side of things. So, right now, currently, as an example, our band and choir, our numbers there roughly on the extracurricular side are probably in the 60s. Now, not everybody that's in band or choir also partakes on the extracurricular side. And so that's kind of why I maybe shied away from that a little bit tonight and probably hitting more just on the athletic side so that you get a larger picture of what our larger numbers are right now, okay? Our overall participation numbers seem to be consistent from year to year, and that right now, even though our enrollment has, I'll say, fluctuated a little bit, we've been fairly consistent. Going forward, we're probably going to see some changes as we hit to some declining enrollment numbers and so on. But for overall, we've been fairly consistent, and that's both on the athletic side and in the fine arts. Some differences that we saw this past year, football was in a situation where we were down numbers, and if you take a look at that, our numbers were roughly around 65, and we typically carry about 80 to 85 in those situations. What that we kind of attribute to is we had a little bit smaller freshman class come in as far as what their numbers were compared to what we had been carrying. And then, of course, just some residual of the other upper grades too, having a few fewer kids and so on. But we do anticipate those numbers for next year to increase back to the 80s with the class that's coming up, our freshman class, and what we expect to regain and retain. Gymnastics is a sport that we've seen a decline in numbers, not just locally, but around the state. If you take a look at Fargo Public Schools this past year, they were down to probably about 3 girls at one time. And then towards the end of the year, they were down to 2 and chose not to compete at the end of the year Eastern Division Conference. They had no EDC meet because there weren't any teams over there to compete other than Wahpeton and a few girls from Fargo. So fortunately, our numbers right now, we had about 10 girls roughly this year. We're graduating 5. So we're going to have a very small squad next year. But the following year is if everybody that we're anticipating that's in the club system comes out and we retain what we have, we will again start to grow back into that 10 to 12 participant range and hopefully continue to grow that a little bit more. Girls swim numbers is also one of the programs that have maybe dipped a little bit here in recent years. But if you take a look at what we have up there, the chart, there is grades 9 through 12, and there's some of our groups are basically 7 through 12 type programs. Sports like tennis, golf, swim and dive are examples of our 7 through 12 programs that we encompass everybody, where we're, in some of these other activities, we're able to house 7th and 8th grade separate programs here at the middle school. Boys golf is an area that we've seen explode here for us this past spring. Right now, we're sitting with over 50 7 through 12 boys golfers. And we're probably going forward anticipating having to separate into a separate JMS program next year, if we can, to take those numbers and allow for those kids to participate and be in a group appropriately, and thereby separating a 9-12 program on the boys golf side, and looking at retaining and probably trying to run a program that we would keep about 16 to 20 JV varsity golfers. That's kind of a sweet spot, I think, with boys golf, and being able to get them playing time in tournaments and attention with our coaches and that kind of a thing. Also, the number of students that we have out there practicing with our local courses too is we need to be sensitive towards that. So some other things I want to just highlight quickly on those numbers. You can take a look at, softball, I believe, on girls softball, there's an asterisk in 22-23. In 22-23, girls softball was a 7 through 12 program. That following year, we split into a true middle school program and a 9 through 12 program. You can see where our girls softball numbers are still very healthy even after that split. So right now, I believe the middle school's running two middle school softball teams, and on the high school side, we're running roughly about 26 girls there. So boys wrestling is also a situation that reflects a little bit different here. This was the first year that boys wrestling we kept as a 7 through 12 program. In the past, the middle school had their own separate program. This year we brought everybody together. So that is the difference, and the reason probably that you're seeing an upswing from 20 students in 24-25 to 37 here this past season. Now with that there's still growth within that. It's just not all obviously due to middle schoolers being part of the wrestling program. So before I move on, any questions regarding the participation numbers or where we're at with our activities? Mr. Rohr?
Could you just clarify, like some of these are listed 9 through 12 and 7 through 12?
Yeah.
And I realize there might be different circumstances for each one, but why do we include 7 through 12 in some and 9 through 12 in others?
Numbers and just the overall nature of the activity. As an example, swimming, there's no other middle school programs in swim and dive around the state. So in order for them to compete, they have to compete 7 through 12. That's one reason. Sometimes it's been our numbers too. As an example, we opened up girls soccer specifically. It was one of the first ones that we opened up 7 through 12 in that sport, just to retain numbers. That if we did not do that, we wouldn't have had enough girls to field a junior varsity team. And without having those girls maintain that junior varsity team, we were probably looking at a couple years down the road of not being able to have a program at all because there's no feeder to it. So that's probably one of the main reasons why we have opened it up to 7-12. I think best case scenario, if we can have a separate middle school program, that's what we all want. But it's not always feasible. Again, finding games, finding contests, putting together a schedule, and again, just practice partners, all those kind of things kind of come into play.
Any other questions? Jamie, go ahead.
So when we go to like a 7 to 12 program, some of the feedback I'm hearing from like the middle school is that transportation aspect, as these kids can't drive at this age, and then just getting them to the high school for practice is not always feasible for working parents. Are we looking into any sort of transportation that would be viable in those situations?
At this point in time, we are not.
And do you think that will hurt our numbers going forward? If a student isn't going to be in wrestling because they can't make it up to the high school, more than likely when they're in 9th grade aren't going to continue in that sport?
Yeah, I do think that may prohibit some, or maybe be a reason why some may not, but I also, we've also been in a situation that in order for us to do this is what we've needed to do, and if, as an example, if you want your son or daughter to golf, you're going to have to transport them to either Hillcrest or the country club and get them out there. So that's kind of with some of these other opportunities, that's kind of where we're at and what we need to do. We don't own our own busing to be able to do that.
Owen, did you have a question? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Or Jamie, you're done.
You mentioned with the kind of the volatility or walking through some trends specific to different sports, but like football, for example, you kind of attributed to potential enrollment swings. Moving forward, we've been looking at, from all the way down to the kindergarten level, seeing that declining enrollment. Are there things that, if that's a factor for kind of influencing the numbers of enrollment and activities, have there been exercises of looking for what that might look like down the road and how to sort of be proactive in planning for that?
That's actually something that our coaches council is currently working with, and have just kind of started to take a look at that and looking at where our current numbers are at our youth levels and our feeder programs and what those look like and what we can do to make sure that as we do continue to decline in enrollment, that we keep participation numbers or even try to grow what those participation numbers are. So we are cognizant of that. I think right now where we're at, I think we're in pretty good shape, but that's something we still need to continue to keep an eye on. And we're very fortunate in a community of our size. We're offering everything that any other public high school in the state of North Dakota offers as far as athletics. Now, there's a few things on the activity side and fine arts that we don't, that other schools do, because we've chosen as a district with low numbers of interest in there not to have those. But overall, I think we're still in pretty good shape.
Jim,
Heidi.
do the numbers that you have on the screen, is that just our Blue Jay Jamestown High School ones that
Those are
go to
the-
school here, or does it also include cooperative
I
numbers?
believe that those also include cooperatives. Those are the numbers that we have reported to North Dakota High School Activity Association based on our end-of-year report.
Okay. So
And
this
that's also the numbers that were taken off of the superintendent's report annually.
Do we know, like, the cooperative numbers, the number of students that are in cooperatives that are on the screen?
It would be hit and miss. I mean, we could dig those up if we wanted to. On average, we only probably have a couple per sport, if any.
Okay.
Hockey is one of our larger ones, I would say, with the boys from Valley City, and that can fluctuate anywhere from, a handful to up to 12, 13 students.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions so far? Okay, thank you.
And Jamie, just to kind of get back to your question a little bit too, as I'm going through and thinking, you had asked about the transportation and so on. And that is one of the reasons why too, that we do try as much as possible. If we can have a middle school program at the middle school, that's a huge reason to try to keep those things local or within their building, because we do understand that those are potential issues.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I'm just thinking, maybe we could put a little bit more effort into like connecting parents at the middle school level for carpooling purposes, that,
Yeah.
to help kind of keep those numbers going.
Yeah, and that is something too that we can probably maybe bring awareness more to our coaches too in their preseason meetings that they have with the parents to maybe offer that maybe that's an opportunity that night for other parents to find out who they can work with. So we appreciate that. The next slide I'm going to share with you are how are our costs shared? What do we pay for? How do we pay for it? Type of thing, and why are we fundraising? What do we fundraise for? Kind of a quick synopsis. Our JPS budgets, we're covering our coaches' salaries, or the transportation and travel. That's probably our biggest chunk of what we're paying for right now. All of our officials that we have to pay for that we contract out there. Our game management, our PA workers, our table workers, our ticket takers, all those people. Our equipment and uniforms are all something that are very important for us to cover within our budget. I feel in my role as a district, it's our responsibility and it's our duty that if we're going to have these activities, that we're making sure that we provide the proper and safe equipment for our students, and that needs to be a priority of what we do when we do our budgeting. Uniforms, that's also, I feel, a responsibility of the district, and we may not have the flashiest uniforms out there, but we do a good job with what we have. We get good uniforms. Our wear and tear on them, we keep an eye on. We try to find the brand sometimes that we can maybe reuse, or if we need to, pick up a few here or there as a few get old or torn or whatever throughout the process of their life expectancy, that we can replace them fairly easy. We have some coaches that have gone above and beyond in taking care of the uniforms and laundering them and so on, and making sure that these things are taken care of for a long time, because a lot of times, our usual life expectancy of a uniform is anywhere from 4 to 6 years. 4 to 6 seasons is what we currently are operating under. Our rental fees, as an example, are, we don't own our own hockey arena. We have to also rent from the gymnastics center, those places, so those are all part of our JPS budget. Entry fees for tournaments that we partake in, High School Activity Association dues and Coaches Association dues for our coaches. That's also something we pay for our head coaches. And it's very important, I think, that we continue to do that. One of the perks of being a member of the North Dakota High School Coaches Association is that it carries $1 million life, or excuse me, not a life, but $1 million liability insurance for that coach, and helps us with that should we ever need that. And then also subscription fees. Everything's web-based now. There's so much that we have to do with, weight management things for our wrestlers, to entries with our track teams and our cross-country teams. They have to go on athletic.net to put in their things, and we've got to maintain subscriptions in order to be able to do that. So those are a few odds and ends too. So those are typically what we all cover within our JPS budget. Now, above and beyond that, what do we expect out of fundraising? Why do our teams fundraise? What do our boosters help us with? Those kind of things. Meals on the Road is a big one. A lot of our coaches, the fundraising that they will do, whether it's some kind of a card sales or a calendar raffle or something like that, or selling ads within their programs, a lot of those coaches are feeding the kids on the road. And I think that's one of our best uses of those fundraising dollars for those teams, is to make sure that when we do go on the road, that these kids are getting a proper meal, hopefully after each event. Some other things, additional equipment wants, there's some things that we aren't able to provide within our budget that maybe aren't completely necessary, but they're really nice to have. An example of that would be like video equipment for a football team, okay? We don't necessarily budget for that, but that's something that's very useful for them, helps them out greatly. That's something that they can go to their boosters for, fundraise for, and so on. Team camps, if our coaches want to take on some additional, attend some clinics, those kind of things, that's where a lot of that fundraising comes from. Athletic and team apparel, a lot of times the teams will do like a pullover, a team pullover or something like that. That's also what these fundraising dollars are used for, or the boosters donate and so on. Okay. Along with that, how do we get all this? Activity fees for us have basically remained the same for quite a while. $75 per high school student for an activity is what we charge. $40 for a middle school student. It's been that way for a long time, and we're not on the low end of things when we talk to other schools, but we're not the highest either. I mean, we might edge towards that, but some of these schools that we're talking about too do not have the transportation bills that we probably do either. So That's one of the things I'd like to share is that, as far as activity fees, that's a quick one that people always jump to try to, to raise revenue, let's just charge more fees. And I'd like to try to discourage that as much as possible. If I could get away from our kids having to pay fees and participate, that would be a perfect scenario. We want our students in activities because we know what that means. We know that they're going to be more successful in school and be connected better. So gate receipts too are something that we're dependent on. Right now, our admission prices have increased slightly here in the last couple of years. Again, we're very similar to what other schools are paying, and it's helped, but we want to continue to try to keep the costs low for our students as much as possible. So currently we're at $8 for an adult, $5 for a student, and I think that $5 for a student I'd like to see there for a long time. The last thing I'd like to share, something to maybe if we need to in the future take a look at revenues and so on, our co-op fees. Our co-op fees with other schools. Right now, the schools that are able to come in and compete with us, we charge $300 a year per school, per activity. Doesn't matter if you have 1 student or 20. They pay $300, okay? There's other models that we could look at going to if we ever choose to do so. I'm not saying I'm encouraging or telling you that that's what we have to do going forward, because I like the relationships that we've had with our schools that we are currently in co-ops, but also there may be other opportunities going forward that we might need to take a look at what we're doing there. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
So the fees, I just want to remind the public that you mentioned, families can apply, that meet free and
yes.
reduced, they can apply for reduced cost to participate?
Yes, we do use a sliding fee scale based on free and reduced lunch. So at the high school level, $75 per sport, but if you do qualify for a reduced lunch, your fee is lower, and if you qualify for free lunch, then it's adjusted as well.
Dr. Leck.
And more of a comment.
Yep.
Mr. Roltz, you and I have talked about cooperatives in general, and you referenced maybe looking at other models rather than a flat fee for cooperatives. And just so the board is aware, we've had the conversation that there's an opportunity here if we're looking at a shift to what that cost sharing is, and if we're doing something different, it's also maybe an opportunity to do a reset on cooperatives. Generally speaking, cooperative agreements are put in place and then they're just held. We might have 1 student participate from Barnes County North in hockey 15 years ago, and we continue to have that cooperative agreement in place, whether we have that 1 person participating or not. And if we do a sharing or some different model for participation in a cooperative, this is the time that we would want to have a reset with those communities and those other schools to say, okay, here's the new model. Is this something that you're interested in? Do you have participants that you'd like to, and you'd like to consider this cooperative arrangement? So I think there's an opportunity there that, historically we haven't looked at a lot of cooperatives once they're established, but this would certainly be the opportunity to do that.
Jamie, go ahead.
Just to kind of clarify between Booster Club fundraising, so those booster clubs work with that club on their wants or needs when they fundraise, but those clubs that don't have a booster club that are also fundraising, how do those monies get tracked? And does it roll over to the next year if it's not all spent, or how does that work?
That is a great question, and I apologize that I didn't share that with you. And for education purposes here, we have budget accounts that we operate under, and we also have what we call our revolving or fundraising accounts as well. So as an example, if I'm a basketball coach, I've got our budget, but if I do any fundraising as a team, we also have our revolving account or our fundraising account that we can put those dollars into. And that account then stays with that program. So a program that doesn't necessarily have boosters still has the opportunity to fundraise and to house their money within the school district. And then we do keep balances on that, and they can have expenditures through there or add to that more deposits.
And just for board awareness, those, revolving accounts are district funds that are audited also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, Owen.
I had a question. You mentioned with transportation that in kind of comparing to other school districts our size, that we have a higher transportation cost issue. Has there been looks into what transportation logistics savings would be if we moved to the east?
Do you want that now? I just in joking, yes, we've done that through the years. I mean, we do have that, and that is something that that we know that would provide us opportunity to cut some of those expenses. But that's not necessarily our choice or our decision. That's actually something towards the end of my presentation here today that I was going to share with you, as well as that there are some things that are changing within the complexion of the state. And as an example, girls hockey now has gone to two regions with the addition of 2 more schools. High School Activity Association now has decided that because they have over 12 teams and enough teams that they are able to break those east and west, that they have now assigned schools to those regions, and Jamestown will currently, starting next year, be an East Region school in girls hockey. So because of that and some other things that are happening, I do think the timing may be advantageous for us to maybe take a look at that again and pursue that maybe once again to remove back to the east. We've had some very basic discussions with some people within. We do need to visit a little bit more with our coaching staffs on that to share with them and get a little bit more feedback. But yeah, there's some thought to that, and there's actually some rough drafts ready to go.
One comment I was going to make with transportation, we contract for service, for busing service. So there's a premium that we pay. And we have had internal discussions and looking at some financial modeling around if we had a couple activities buses, what would be the short-term and long-term payback on us running activities for some of these, especially for the longer ones.
Yeah.
So that's another cost savings that could come just by owning buses, just an upfront cost.
Well, and just-
The fact too that the last few years we've been able to operate with a couple 14 passenger buses. Those two buses have saved us an incredible amount of time, but also have been very fortunate for us to be able to, and appropriate for us to send certain size teams or activities or groups around the state to help cut down on those costs. It's also helped us within the district too during the normal school day too, to transport students within the community.
I'm just going to add on, and
Yeah.
just 1 second, I'm just going to add on the transportation. Aaron from the Finance Committee has asked for a breakdown of how it's savings, and also, if it's our bus, it's available to us, right, for the time being. So I think
Yep.
those are some things that we're going to have to continue to look at and budget for and plan for and saving us over year after year. So, Jason, go ahead.
Back to cooperatives, are those agreements, are those available for non-athletic activities also?
It's a good question. The cooperative agreements basically stem, and that is through North Dakota High School Activity Association. So we have co-ops in place through them because we have to in order for those to compete. There are other things that we do that we could have a co-op or decide that we want to share resources and do without having to maybe even go through a formal co-op as you do with high school activities. But I think it would be prudent to do something similar or have a memo of understanding of some kind in order to say that, yes, we're going to share the costs of this, whatever that might be. Yeah, I think an example would be like dance, robotics. Yeah. So.
Any other questions at this time? Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, since it was brought up, the east-west thing, I think that should be a broader topic that I think we as a district need to address. And just to, review it, are we in the right spot, and or should we try to push for a change? Because it's not just the cost, the transportation costs and other costs to do it, it's the opportunity for the parents to go see their kids play, and then also the academic side, having these kids go on what could be a one-day trip turns into a multi-day event because it's across the state.
Right.
Having a kid come home at 3 o'clock in the morning and then say you have to go to school at 8 o'clock, and you have to be prepared and awake and all that. It's not a good academic fit.
Yep.
And so that's why I think we need to just challenge the status quo and see if, is there a better opportunity for us to be in the East District.
Dr. Luck.
I was going to add, this has been a topic of conversation really in the 13 years that I've been here, and something we've continued to look at procedurally. I think what Mr. Rolson has outlined is maybe the first step is making sure that we're engaging with our coaches in terms of what the impact would be to programs. And then there is a request that would have to go. We don't just get to say we would like to move from the west to the east. We have to be approved by Activities Association and their board of directors to be in whatever division they place us in. We can make a formal request to be moved, but it's up to their board of directors to determine. And what, Mr. Rolson, is the timeline for that for a future year?
What I would envision, if that's something that we would like to do, as an example, if we're going to make this move, I've kind of in my own mind targeted the 27-28 school year as an option. We would need to get that ball rolling here probably by this fall.
And I would say I said in 13 years, this has been a point of conversation. There's probably never been a year in which our point is stronger or our leverage is stronger than now to start engaging in that conversation. When you look at the development of schools across the state, there are opportunities that make sense to consider a move to the east that didn't exist 5-6 years ago. When schools like Minot North or McKenzie County start, moving up or either opening or moving up levels, where I think now it makes much more sense for that to be considered than it would have been 7-8 years ago. I think now is the time to start having that, making that request.
Yeah, and I guess my point was, I do recognize that it isn't within our control, it's not in our decision, but we can influence and provide some inputs to it that I think have a little bit more teeth, because if it comes down to a point of viability, if a sport isn't viable because we can't afford something, the whole portfolio, and we got to start making, rather have a discussion on East versus West than do or not do.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Any other
Good.
questions? Jacob?
Yep,
did
I
you
go
have-
on. Regardless of east or west,
Yep.
wherever we end up, how are schedules determined? Currently in the west, occasionally we're going to have to go to Williston. Is there a way that we can work with the state, with the activities, to make sure that we're not going to Williston on a Tuesday? Can we say have a state policy that says any travel over a certain distance has to happen on a weekend as opposed to...
There is no such thing right now in the state, and the high school activities does not mandate schedules at this point in time. They do mandate that you compete in a region for postseason. but you have your divisions themselves. And for an example, the larger schools choose the EDC or the WDA. That's our divisions. The WDA, we control our own schedules, and we do try to do that. So you'll take a look at our schedules, and most of the time you're going to see if we're playing Watford City or Williston, we're trying to do that on a Friday or a Saturday. And if at all possible, we try to piggyback games too, so that we are knocking out 2 trips on a Friday, Saturday, and returning home. That's not always possible, especially when you get to the point where you're dealing with 14 different schools and different schedules that everybody else has too. But for the most part, we try to do that. The downside of the WDA is you're going to have to travel, period. I mean, you take a look at Dickinson. You're going to Dickinson, you're going to Minot twice, you're going to Watford City, you're going to Williston. So that's the unfortunate side. We actually have tried to put, when we've had to, a Minot sometimes on a Tuesday if we have to do it during the week. And one of the reasons why we've done that is because on Wednesdays at the high school, we have a late start. So that does build for those student athletes, that hopefully it builds in at least 1 hour for them versus what it would be on a Thursday night. But we know it's not ideal, but we try to work as best we can and work with the other schools and trying to keep those long distance ones to Friday and Saturday, but it's inevitable sometimes. We will not go to Williston on a Monday or Tuesday unless we absolutely have to, if it's a makeup or something like that, where we have to get it in for conference standings. So.
It never fails. We always have a blizzard or a reschedule too, and then it basket upset for the whole schedule.
Yeah, it's almost like spring sports. You typically have 2 sets of schedules. It's inevitable.
Any other questions? Any other, before we move on here, because this is an important slide. I will say, of any questions I get from parents or patrons, it's information from this slide. So this is really good education for all of us and the public. So thank you. Any other questions at this time from the board? Okay, go ahead and move on.
There we go. Okay. One of the questions was brought up too was just administrative supervision. How much time do the administrators spend supervising events after schools and different activities? Just very quickly, and I apologize too. I had a link to our home events that I didn't share with Mr. Lex, so I apologize for that. But just to give you an idea, this past winter, the winter season, December to the end of February, there were 131 total hours for activity supervision. Now that's just 131 hours from, we have a basketball game, so okay, we're going to start at 4 o'clock and we're going to end at 8:30 or 9:30. There's 4.5 hours. That's one. And then we do that I did that for every sport or different activity that we had. One thing I didn't do, and then I broke it down into days too. So 6 Tuesday nights, there were 8 Friday nights and 10 Saturday nights or days that we had activities on that we were working during those times. Now with that, there's also multiple administrators at different events. So this 131 is a little skewed here too. As an example, on a boys and girls basketball night, we need 3 administrators. We have to have one over at track, where we play some sub-varsity games at. And that typically will start at 4, and then the last game starts at 7:30. So there's probably about 5 hours worth of supervision there. And then we typically, for boys and girls basketball, have 2 at the school as well, at the high school, with our sub-varsity girls there and our girls varsity and boys varsity. Hockey is another example that we typically have 2 administrators there. Most of the other activities we can do with one administrator there and do, but those other ones, like I said, the basketball and the hockey tends to be the ones that we have to put extra staff on. I want to say this right now too. As far as the supervision and reason for being there and managing it and overseeing, our kids from JPS are awesome. Very, very little do we ever have to deal with our students and their behavior or things that we need to correct there. And if there is something we need to correct, they typically do it without too many problems. As administrators, our biggest issue right now is adults. We really struggle with adults at games and contests. And we're in an unfortunate and a sad time where we have to worry about adults at children's games. As an example here, just to share with you, this past winter we had, as of the winter, I don't even know if we had gotten to postseason yet in the winter sports, but I think there had been like 32 fan ejections statewide in North Dakota at that point. This winter we had 2 ejections in our winter sports. One was one of our local fans, and the other one was a visiting fan. So these are some of the things that, as administrators that are supervising, that you're having to deal with. It's not just about worrying about the game management anymore. It's worrying about what's happening in the crowd and around the facility and so on. Mr. Rohr?
Sorry, I was taking some.
And is the High School Activities Association looking to address that in any way?
They're trying to. That's why they have the ejection policy. So right now, if an adult or anybody is ejected from a game, they are prohibited from attending any other game for 2 weeks.
And it's sad to say, but are they looking at any adult education, any like reminders of, I mean, just anything?
There's some things, but that's more on our shoulders locally, unfortunately. But there is a process also with high school activities that we share with them who the offenders are and so on. And if it comes down to something at a state tournament or a regional tournament where we might have somebody that is not allowed to attend, we might let the tournament management know.
Dr. Luck?
And we have used fan education as a requirement as part of our, if we do have an ejection, to return. That is something we've used before.
Yeah.
Owen?
Yeah.
Owen.
Yeah, talking about this as a statewide issue and the administrative supervision, have you talked to other of your peers at other places to see kind of how different models of how they assign kind of time or supervision, or is this a pretty standard
I think it's
model?
pretty standard as far as who's doing that supervision, how they do it. Different places do it differently. As an example, some districts might be paying their administrators to do it, others don't. That's something to take a look at. Maybe it's maybe even I don't know if a comp time thing or not, but the other thing is employing other people to do that as well. You know, that's a great opportunity for us as well to have, you know, like our school resource officers present periodically if we have them available. We work with our law enforcement locally, and there's different times too where we just say, you know, come on in. Come on in, take a walk through. I'll get you a cup of coffee, or I'll get you something at concessions. But just come on in, come on through. I've done that with tournaments too that we've had at the Civic Center at various times, where I'll let the officers on duty know, hey, we got this going on, come on through. We got a hospitality room, we'll even feed you. So.
I'm glad you gave more clarification to 131 hours, because when I was reviewing the information, preparing for the meeting, that stuck out at me as like, that's not, well, yeah, a lot, but I do know those longer, like you said, even a basketball, it starts at 4:30 and it goes till 9:30, 10. And especially if we have 4 teams playing at different locations, and so that kind of helps clarify that.
I think probably the biggest drain on administration is you take a look at what night of the week. You know, a lot of times you might be going Tuesday, Thursday, that you've already had some games, now all of a sudden we're also doing Friday night, and then now you're also doing Saturday. If you take a look at 10 Saturdays from December to the end of February, there's not a lot of Saturdays that you're open.
Yep.
So,
Other questions? No? Okay, move on.
okay. Last slide I have for you guys is our coaches' salaries. I take that back. I got 2 left. I apologize. Coaches' salaries, how are they determined? I apologize that this is taking a while. How are they determined, and how do coaches get paid? Negotiate agreement. That's the first and foremost step is our coaches are paid by the negotiated agreement with the JEA. That's the document that we operate from. Okay. How did those all get determined? This is my 23rd year here as AD, and the current structure that we have was developed prior to me. Okay, so this is a structure that we've had for quite a while. Now, maybe some tweaking has been done to it here or there, but the groupings of the different levels kind of have been in place longer than 23 years. And a lot of that is based on the number of weeks that a season holds. There's other things that come into play as well. I believe when they originally put that together, some other things might be the type, the involvement in safety equipment that you have to do, the nature of the sport or the activity. Is it a specialized skill that you have a tough time finding somewhere else? The liability that's there that you have to cover? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Dr. Leckus.
I'm just going to add with the weeks, can you clarify too, in some districts, there's an additional stipend if you go into postseason. Our weeks, correct me if I'm wrong, but our weeks assume the full length from the very first practice all the way through the state tournament.
Correct.
So there isn't an additional stipend to advance into a top tournament. It's assumed in those weeks.
We do not offer any, I don't know what you want to call it, but incentive package to make the postseason. We have that expectation that our coaches and advisors are working with our students from day one to the very end of the season. Because even at that, even if a team does not end up in a state tournament, there's still things that they need to wrap up in the end of the year. There's still inventory to be done. There's evaluations of assistant coaches to be done. Hopefully they are attending at those state tournaments and finding out and find out this is what we need to do to get better so that we're here next year. Those kind of things.
And I wanted to, and just to clarify too, I didn't mean it as an incentive necessarily, but more as just a recognition of the time. We assume the time from the first available practice all the way through the end of that season, which is the completion of a state tournament. Just because you may add, because in some districts they do recognize that time. If there's an additional few weeks that go into a state tournament, that they're paid, and you might hear that, and that is one difference. We just assume that right into the initial number of weeks.
Yep. Okay. So that's kind of how the groupings and the levels have come into existence. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a nutshell. That's really how they are. And then also dependent too, and our middle school programs are figured into that too, and so on. But the process for paying coaches are end of year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because just, if you want to walk through that.
Yeah, I can do that. So typically how our coaches get paid. Our fall coaches typically will get 1/3 of their stipend at the preseason time. So our district pays them 1/3 of their paycheck prior to school starting because they've gone through preseason. Okay? Then what will happen for our fall sports is at the end of their season, once all the paperwork has been done by the head coach and assistant coaches, inventory has been done. I have an end-of-year exit meeting that we have to do with each head coach and do their evaluations and so on. Once we get all that signed and turned in, then they are to receive the other 2/3 of their stipend or their pay. And of course, there are two within this slide. It talks a little bit about the timeliness of things. So because that we're on the 10th of the month and 20th of the month payroll, the 5th of the month and the 15th of the month are very important dates and where they land on the calendar. Because if you don't get all that done by the 5th and you want to get into the 10th payroll, there's times where if you miss that date, now you're not getting paid till the 20th. And it's very similar where if you don't make that 15th deadline, you're not getting paid till the 10th of the next month. And there again, too, that's provided that all the paperwork is done, you've done your inventory, we've gone through budgets with myself, all of our little checklists that we have. Needs to be done. Winter coaches, very similar to the fall, where they get 1/3 prior at Christmas. They'll get 1/3 of their stipend at Christmas time, and then a lump sum at the end of the season after they complete all their things that they need to do at the end of the winter season. Spring is different. Spring, we don't have 1/3. Spring is so short that we do one lump sum payment at the end. So I don't know if there's any further questions or anything more I can kind of go into detail on that for you, or?
Jason, go ahead.
Whenever I hear something's been in place for 23-plus years, of course,
Yep.
you know, the groupings and whatnot, is that still adequate? Is it still what other districts do? Do you feel that deserves a revisit, or we're good there?
I think overall it's good where we're at, but I think having a look at it again doesn't hurt anybody. I think it's necessary for us to continue to do that and relook at what we're doing. I've been in this role for 23 years, but one of the worst things I hate is we've always done it that way, so that's what we're going to do. No. Yep.
Owen?
Similar question on process. There's a lot of moving parts here. Are there processes or updates to processes that you've considered to kind of streamline some of this stuff?
We have, but at the end of the day, the budget tool that we use, I think, is a good tool. It needs to be done. I think our evaluation piece that we do has been good. I think it's pretty thorough, rather than just a circle yes or circle no type of thing. We ask for reflections from our coaches to do some introspective. And especially the head coaches, they meet with me and we discuss that and go through their goals for the upcoming year, what their goals were this past year, what they had for goals and I think that's real important to do with the head coaches. And that's usually what takes up a lot of the time. And it's a matter too of the timeliness of that coach having their stuff ready to go and into me, that allows me time to process what I need to do as well. But then also, depending on the time of year, if I'm managing a state tournament, it can get tough on my availability to sit down with a coach. They might be ready to go here today, but I might not be able to meet with them till next week because that's my calendar. And I try as much as possible to get those done as fast as we can, because I know we've got people relying on that, on their checks. Especially sometimes too, assistant coaches are out there waiting on head coaches to complete this process. But in answer to your question, I'm sorry, are there other processes that we could use? I think there is some potential, and I would be open to it if our coaches were able to come up with something. I think that's something that our coaches council could help us with here down the road as well. But ultimately, I think what we do have and what we try to get done at the end of the year is valuable, and that, I think we could tweak it, but I think what we do is pretty good.
Were you going to talk more about the coaches council, or just curious how often that meets, or kind of what the goals
Yeah,
of that are?
right now, I can give you a brief synopsis of that. It's something that we've implemented actually within the last year again here. There's 5 coaches that are head coaches that kind of served as an overall group that I'm working with to try to determine what are our needs for our coaching staffs, our head coaches, our assistant coaches, and so on. What do we need to do for professional development? What are areas of needs that we have that we want to take a look at? As we talked earlier about our numbers, enrollment numbers and participation numbers, that's something they're trying to work together on to try to figure out what do we need to do going forward to make sure that we don't end up we get the declining enrollment, that we don't have a negative spike in what our participation numbers are. Anything else, you guys?
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Last thing I have, just future fundraising was the last slide. Is there opportunity for a unified or activity fundraising specific efforts? I think there is. For some big ticket items, we've had some discussions with a few people that are outside of our coaching staff and so on that are tied into some of our booster groups. I think that would be very supportive of some things. As an example, some big ticket items that, we've talked about motor coaches or people movers that we might need to go forward with or be able to utilize. I think we could get some help with that. It's just a matter of getting the people together and having a common goal. And that's a prime example of our coaches council where they could play a valuable role in that into what they feel our actual needs are from their perspective as coaches. I have an idea of what I would want for as an AD, but what they want to travel versus what I think is what we need to travel sometimes is a little bit different. Okay. The other thing, facility improvements, again, that's always the battle. From day one when we built that school, it's an awesome facility and we've had some pretty special things there, but it's over 20 years old and some of that is starting to show its age. Our pool is, a maintenance nightmare sometimes. But there's also things that we need to kind of take to that next level. We got Erstead Field out there, which is a great facility that's helped us with practice space and done some great things, but we need to take that next step. We're lacking locker rooms, availability, bathrooms, concessions for our soccer field out there. If we're going to be looking at utilizing Erstead Field as more of our junior varsity and sub-varsity football field, we're going to need to have facilities there that allow us to do that in the form of, again, locker rooms and bathrooms and concessions and storage and those kind of things. Jerry Meyer Arena, that floor needs an overhaul, and that's the last quote I got before, and we haven't been able to do it, but that last quote I got was about $85,000 to strip it down all the way, or repaint it and redo it all. So it's not some cheap things to do, but timing system in the pool area. Daktronics doesn't do aquatics anymore, and that's the timing equipment that we're using. So we've got something we're working towards here right now to try to make that next step into purchasing a different timing system. And I think we can get the help with hopefully some of our booster and our parents, but also the University of Jamestown that's utilizing that facility. So anyway, I apologize. I took a lot of time here for you, but.
Okay. No, this is good, Jim. Thank you. I think that we get a lot of questions. Go ahead, Dan. Go.
Okay, I do have a kind of an overarching question. I thank you for acknowledging at the beginning that this was very athletics oriented. And I think, and you hit the nail on the head, there's kind of a jump ball between, okay, where does the non-athletics activities come in there? Who kind of has jurisdiction for that leadership over that? And I think that's a great opportunity for us as a district to kind of help maybe realign those and kind of treat them as, how do we kind of give it the same importance as the athletics and kind of balance as an entire picture under activities versus, that's why I do thank you for kind of doing that. And Dr. Leck, I think it's a good opportunity for a larger discussion.
Yeah, they're important. The fine arts that we have, our music department is awesome. The kids that are involved in that do a great job, and it's fun to see them grow and so on. Our drama numbers are good, and that's one of the things I've encouraged a lot of our kids to do in the preseason meetings that we have with the students prior to the school year starting, is that get involved, find something. You're young once, take some risks, do some try to do something that's out of your realm. I did that as a senior in high school. I actually took part in a play, and that was the last thing I was probably adept at doing, but I took that chance, and what a great experience it was, and want to see our kids do that kind of thing too. So, but
And Jim, you did mention with, obviously, I think everyone recognizes facilities across our district are things that we have a capital projects plan and, with goals. With some of this very specific athletic things, are you having conversations with booster groups? Because I'm just kind of curious where, some of these things probably has to happen sooner than later,
Yeah.
and some we could plan for down the road, but it just was kind of curious as to how.
honestly, we need help. We need help. We're at very infancy on some of this because we've got so much going on and everything else where, in order for us to accomplish some of this, it can't be just one person. It can't be a small group of people. We need a variety of people that are willing to step up and say, hey, I want to help with this.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, just to say this is very informative, and thank you for this. And then I appreciate all of your efforts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on our agenda, we have strategic, Dan, go ahead, sorry. Yep, you go. Yep, thank you. Thank you, Dan. Strategic plan progress monitoring, we have the dashboard. Does Adam have anything? And then next, superintendent's report, Dr. Luck.
Thank you. You have my written report. The first item I'll talk about is the school board self-assessment. As you're all aware, policy BEC has a self-assessment. We have digitized that, and I have opened that board self-assessment through May 13th. So if you want to please take advantage of that and complete that before May 13th, then like I have done in the past, we'll synthesize results and share those with you as well. But again, May 13th is the deadline for that, and we'll share that with you in June. There's a couple different trainings or workshops that I'm going to reference in this in my report. The first is some FERPA training that we're conducting with Jamestown Police Department and JPS administration. And I'm sure the board realizes, and I just want to reaffirm what a great partnership we have with the Jamestown Police Department. They are wonderful to work with. They are wonderful partners for the district. They continue to keep our kids safe and our students and our staff and our students safe, and they're just wonderful partners. One area in which we want to get some additional training is as it relates to the implementation of FERPA. I know you're very familiar with FERPA and student confidentiality, and so we want to. This training is what it's going to do, not that there's concerns that we're trying to address, but it's more just to ensure that we have compliance with FERPA while we also maintain appropriate access to student information so law enforcement is able to do their work to keep us safe and to keep our students safe. And so we're bringing in Meredith Vukovic. You know Meredith, you've heard her speak to this board before from Pierce Durick, or at least now for now with Pierce Durick, to talk about student confidentiality specifically for school resource officers and for law enforcement. We have an MOU that governs that work and that partnership between the Jamestown Police Department and the school district. If there are any changes that come through that training, Meredith would be a part of that as legal counsel to review. And that would come before the board if there were any changes. I don't anticipate there would be, but if there are any changes, that would come through this board. There's a question? Oh, okay. I wanted to skip to one other training just a little bit further down in my report. I was able last week to attend the AASA State Leadership Conference in Atlanta. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to go to these things. They're so valuable to learn about what's happening across the country, what's happening in other states, and just to reaffirm, the costs were covered by the American Association for School Administrators and North Dakota Association for School Administrators. There was no cost to the district to attend, so I'm fortunate there, but I do appreciate the opportunity to attend through professional leave to take advantage of opportunities like this. I've listed the different topics that were there, and I will tell you it was a fantastic couple of days, and probably my biggest takeaway related to the new K-12 federal tax credit program. Was able to hear from, if not the most in touch or the individual with the most applicable knowledge to what the tax credit through the big beautiful bill will mean for public education. And that in itself could be a board education, probably even longer than Mr. Roltson's board education that we just had. But I look forward to sharing a little bit of that information with you, specifically to that tax credit. But again, appreciation for the ability to attend those types of things. Moving back up in my written report, awards presentation on May 6th, so Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the Jamestown High School auditorium. If you have never been to the awards ceremony and you have an opportunity at 2 o'clock, please stop in. I always love to be see our students get these awards, but also our community coming together in this forum to give these awards to kids. So a total of 65 scholarships given this year, and that's $67,500 of scholarships that are given just this year. That's pretty close to the average in terms of the total value. It's increased every year. Just to give you a sense, when I first came to Jamestown, there was about around 40 to 50 average scholarships given. And when I first came, those scholarships were $500. Now we've added another 20 or so scholarships, and now they're all at $1,000 and some are more. That's where you get to the $6,750. The only way that happens is with a great group of Dollars for Scholars, a very, very dedicated board of volunteers, and they're amazing to work with. And I want to give them a lot of attention to the work that they do. And I'd like to bring them in for some recognition sometime in the next couple of months. But they do a great job in building those funds that were available to give to kids. Those dollars don't just come from investment income. And they do a great job of managing that, but it's securing new commitments, going out and being active in recruiting additional endowments. As an example, we had a strategic plan, just like the board has a strategic plan or the district has a strategic plan. Dollars for Scholars has a strategic plan, already met their goal. They had a 2030 goal for endowments. They've already reached that in 1 year. They're just really hitting the pavement and making sure and going out and getting those endowments. An endowed scholarship to give $1,000 in perpetuity is $20,000. So just to add 5 in a year, that's a huge commitment, and these individuals are working really hard. I'm the chair of the scholarship committee, and I do think it's valuable to bring the board and the greater community some understanding around how that process works. So we get, there's a lot of different criteria that go in it. It's very scholarship dependent. Some scholarships say they must be going into a CTE field. Some say GPA is the biggest indicator. Some say community service. They're all over the board. Kids go to a portal and they complete this application, and then they're matched with scholarships. Okay, so we might have a scholarship that's matched for 20 kids, and so as a scholarship committee, we need to determine who then receives that scholarship. The They're all done based on the criteria. They get points associated with each of the criteria, and it's all done on a student ID number. We don't know who receives scholarships until they're awarded. I mean, before they're awarded at the banquet, but until the completion of awarding those individual ceremonies. So it's all done based on the merit of the application. But I will say one of the things that we've talked about in the last few years is getting to a point, because we knew the trajectory of Dollars for Scholars, of getting to a point where we could award a scholarship to every submitted application. This is the first year that we've been able to do that. So we had 65 submitted applications, and we've been able to give 65 scholarships. So hopefully I'm not, stealing any Dollars for Scholars thunder there 2 days before their award ceremony. But that's a big deal. We would hope that we can continue that kind of trajectory to make sure that every student that applies and submits is able to get a scholarship. And like I said, I want to be able to bring this board in and get recognized, because they have done fantastic work. Just in the decade or so that I've been here, it's grown exponentially. So really exciting things.
I also just want to add at the board ceremony, it's all scholarships. Also, there's other community ones and as well. I just want to say that on top of the Dollars for Scholars. So it's a pretty neat event for our seniors.
It would be well worth your hour to see students come in and get their $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 scholarships. Later on in the agenda, you'll have a resignation from Sydney Larson. You may remember there was an MOU associated with Sydney's Miss Larson's employment as a resident teacher, and I just wanted to point out that there is a prorated payback like we have on all of our MOUs, but that will be deducted from the James River payment, or the annual amount we pay to James River. It'll be deducted from that amount, just in the event that you're wondering. And then the last item that I had, you have 3 different spotlights, all in food service. Cindy Wall was named as the North Dakota State and Mountain Plains, sorry for the misspelling there, Mountain Plains Region Food Service Director of the Year. She's also president-elect for that organization, and she's going to bring 200 food service staff here for in 2027 for their state conference. Also, Liz Zink, who works at Louis L'Amour, has been named the School Nutrition Association's Employee of the Year, and Jennifer Erickson, who works at the high school, has been named as the State Manager of the Year, and I want to recognize them for their great work. So with that, I'd stand for questions.
And if you are on or follow social media, they're worth a follow, the food service. Any questions from the board on the superintendent report? Any questions? Okay. If not, moving on our agenda, we have nothing under old business. Under new business, we have nothing under activities, buildings, grounds, curriculum, assessment, instruction, finance, operations, or and then we get to personnel, number 6. A, approval to hire for the 2026 to 2027 school year upon a successful background check and appropriate licensure, Jenna Barson. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Is there a second? Second by Jacob. We have a motion and a second for approval to hire for the 2026 to 2027 school year upon successful background check and appropriate licensure, Jennifer Barson. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, and welcome to our district. B, approval resignation at the conclusion of the 2025 to 2026 school year. Number 1, Kimberly Carpenter. Number 2, Elizabeth Wilkie. Number 3, Sydney Larson. Is there a motion? Motion by Owen. Is there a second? Second by Jason. We have a motion, a second for approval of the resignation at the conclusion of the 2025 to 2026 school year. Kimberly Carpenter, Elizabeth Wilkie, and Sydney Larson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Yes.
I think one of these gave us some valuable input. A lot of times with these resignations, we don't get a lot of feedback from the teachers and why they're leaving. So I think it's important that we take a little bit deeper dive into that.
Yep. And then also, well, we'll move on. Any other discussion? I want to, Kimberly Carpenter, too, has taught in our district for a lot of years, so appreciate her many years of service as well as service of the other two teachers. So,
And we do have our exit survey and exit interview process too. That gives us valuable insight.
taught math for a few years. So, any other discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Nothing under policy and procedures, tuition, or other. Items for future agenda. We have teacher negotiation meeting on Tuesday, May 12th, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room in the middle school. Health Insurance Committee is on Monday, May 11th at 3:45 p.m. in the district office conference room. The transition program graduation on Thursday, May 14th, 2026 at 11 a.m. in the Thompson Community Room. School board meeting is on Monday, May 18th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room. JPS High School graduation on Sunday, May 24th, 2026, 2:30 p.m. in the Civic Center. And we have the Senior Awards Banquet at 2 p.m. Wednesday, May 6th. The next item is possible executive session to discuss negotiation strategies.
Yes, I believe that the discussion with our negotiations and developing a strategy relative to the school board's petition in this matter in open session would have an adverse fiscal effect on negotiations position of the board. Therefore, I move that the board enter into an executive session that the following members and negotiators be identified as being present: Jamie Baer, Heidi Larson, Owen McKenna, Jason Rohr, and Superintendent Rob Leck, and Adam Gaylor, Business Manager Christy Grounds, and that the date and time are Monday, May 4th at 7:03 p.m. And that only the following topic will be considered in executive session: negotiation strategies, and that the legal authority for the executive session is Section 44-04-19.1 of the North Dakota Century Code, and the executive session will be recorded.
Is there a second? Second by Jason? Yep. Aaron? Yep.
Procedural question.
Yes.
Since you don't have a quorum to vote on this, can you vote?
I believe we can, because
There's only 4 voting members
Yep.
available?
Yep, but we started the meeting with 5. So, and then you have a quorum based on the number of people here. So I believe that is correct.
Even though some are not able to vote, you still have a quorum.
Okay.
I think we've run into this one other time, similar situation, but good point of question. If someone thinks that's not correct, please let me know, but that's what I remember from previous times, so. And so Jason is the second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Please note that following the executive session, we will return to finish out the meeting and adjourn the meeting, and the only topics to be discussed were the ones mentioned in the motion. Thank you.